Take our hands, O God, as we come to worship. It's good to see you this morning and to welcome all of you, particularly those of you who are visiting on behalf of the congregation. We're happy that you're here. Certainly hope you enjoy the service and that you will worship with us again. Any programs that the chapel sponsors are open to the entire community, and we invite you to also participate in them. There are a number of announcements this morning. They're pretty much all in the bulletins, but I'll call your special attention to several items. The ICCC, the International Council of Community Churches, their annual conference is coming up this summer, July 17 through 20. We have several people from the church who are seriously considering attending that, and I do have the information. I've got registration forms, I've got little pamphlets, so if you are interested, contact the church office, contact me, and I'd love to share that information with you. There's a special insert in your bulletin this morning, the Empath Health, which is the overview or umbrella organization for the Suncoast Hospice, is having a special speaker, Jill Campbell, the wife of Glenn Campbell, the entertainer, songwriter. You all know Glenn Campbell, who's in the later stages of Alzheimer's, and she's going to be speaking here on May 26th. The information is there. They do expect a full house, so if you're interested in attending that, you do want to call and make your reservations just as quickly as possible. The food carrier, the letter carrier's food drive is going to be on Saturday, May 13th. That's a week from this coming Saturday. Once again, the major recipient here will be the RCS Food Bank. If you want to volunteer to help with that, they basically need people to help once it arrives at the food bank with the sorting and organization. So if you're interested, again, all of that information is there. It tells you where you can park and where you should not park. And if you're interested in that, we do have a sign-up sheet in the Friendship Foyer, or you can call directly to the food bank, and they'll be able to help you also. The Jacobson Foundation, a number of people have already contributed. As you know, the information is in the bulletin also about that. Matching funds kind of program. A number of people have already contributed to that. Just in 1 week, we've got contributions to the tune of $8,600, and others have indicated a desire to help. If you would like to participate in that in terms of the church's future, please read that, and any contributions you want to make. If you write a check, it should come with the Jacobson Foundation or Jacobson Fund on the memo line. Finally, Lorraine and I were gone last weekend. We were up in North Carolina. As you know, our son and daughter-in-law lost a daughter to a traffic accident last February, and because of a number of commitments as well as some other reasons, we were not able to go at that time. So we were up there this past weekend from Friday to Monday, and it went very well. We had to be with them, and it worked well. And I do want to thank Scott Moncrief. Lorraine and I watched last week's service yesterday on television, and the choir was great, and Scott was great, and we're so fortunate to have him and Susan here as part of our chapel family, and want to thank him again for taking over the service. With all that said, let's now begin our service of worship.
Oh, us join in the invitation to celebration responsively. It is the Sabbath, a day of rest and worship.
It is the Sabbath, a day on which God has called us to gather.
So we are here, responding to that call.
We are here to pray and praise and find the divine in one another.
In our time together, let us worship the one we call Lord.
In this moment, in this place, we pledge ourselves to discipleship.
In unison, let us call upon God using our invocation. Each day, O God, is a gift, a priceless gift to be used and cherished. Enable us to use this gift to its fullest potential so it will never be wasted. Grant us greater vision and wisdom as we seek to improve our world for the benefit of all its inhabitants. Reveal to us new paths of service and take away from us that which will hinder and restrict our discipleship. This and so much more we try to articulate in our prayer, ending with the words of the one who served and lived most fully, Jesus the Christ. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not in temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
morning, when the stars begin to fall, you'll hear the trumpet sound to wake the nations underground. Look into my God's right hand when the stars begin to fall. My Lord, what a morning! My Lord, what a morning! Oh, my Lord, what a morning! When the stars begin to fall, you'll hear the sinners mourn to see the righteous marching home. Look into my God's right hand to when the stars begin to fall. My Lord, what a morning! My Lord, what a morning! Oh, my Lord, what a morning! When the stars begin to fall.
In gratitude for the many gifts we have received and in commitment to our church, let us be generous in our morning offering.
God of grace and God of glory, on your people pour your power. Replace our weakness with strength. Replace our doubt with trust. Replace our selfishness with generosity. Replace our greed with altruism. Replace our indifference with compassion. Replace our fear with faith. Replace our hatred with love. Turn us back into the beings you originally created us to be, and help us to know that we can always improve and grow. As we walk through our own valleys of darkness and despair, raise our sights toward the mountaintops, which we can reach if we climb with you, with us, pushing us from behind, accompanying us as you hold our hands, leading us from before. Enable us to see ourselves as you see us, imperfect works in progress, who have a long way to go to reach our fullest potential, but who can make it, particularly as we strive to emulate Jesus Christ. The road that stretches before us is long and not always easy to travel, but we can do it. Thank you for showing us that we can do it. And now hear our petitions and our praise as we come to you in the serenity of our personal prayers. Amen. morning from familiar passages from the book of Luke, the Gospel of Luke, and it deals with the post-Easter happenings as reported by Luke. I'm reading to you from chapter 24, verses 13 through 31. But on the first day of the week at early dawn, they came to the tomb, taking the spices that they had prepared. They found the stone rolled away from the tomb, but when they went in, they did not find the body. While they were perplexed about this, suddenly 2 men in dazzling clothes stood beside them. The women were terrified and bowed their faces to the ground, but the men said to them, "Why do you look for the living among the dead? He is not here, but has risen. Remember how he told you while he was still in Galilee, that the Son of Man must be handed over to sinners and be crucified, and on the third day rise again?" Then they remembered his words, and returning from the tomb, they told all this to the 11 and to all the rest. Now it was Mary Magdalene, Joanna, Mary, the mother of James, and the other women with them who told this to the apostles. But these words seemed to them an idle tale, and they did not believe them. But Peter got up and ran to the tomb, stooping and looking in. He saw the linen cloths by themselves. Then he went home, amazed at what had happened. That introduces the next passage, which took place later that day. Now on that same day, 2 of them were going to a village called Emmaus, about 7 miles from Jerusalem, and talking with each other about all these things that had happened. While they were talking and discussing, Jesus himself came near and went with them, but their eyes were kept from recognizing him. And he said to them, "What are you discussing with each other while you walk along?" They stood still, looking sad. Then one of them, whose name was Cleopas, answered him, "Are you the only stranger in Jerusalem who does not know the things that have taken place there in these days?" He asked them, "What things?" They replied, "The things about Jesus of Nazareth, who was a prophet, mighty in deed and word before God and all the people, and how our chief priests and leaders handed him over to be condemned to death and crucified him. But we had hoped that he was the one to redeem Israel. Yes, and besides all this, it is now the 3rd day since these things took place. Moreover, some women of our group astounded us. They were at the tomb early this morning, and when they did not find his body, they came back and told us that they had indeed seen a vision of angels who said that he was alive. Some of those who were with us went to the tomb and found it just as the women had said, but they did not see him." Then he said to them, "Oh, how foolish you are, and how slow of heart to believe all that the prophets have declared. Was it not necessary that the Messiah should suffer these things and then enter into his glory?" Then beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he interpreted to them the things about himself in all the scriptures. As they came near the village to which they were going, he walked ahead, as if he were going on. But they urged him strongly, saying, "Stay with us, because it is almost evening, and the day is nearly over." So he went in to stay with them. When he was at the table with them, he took bread, blessed and broke it, and gave it to them. Then their eyes were open, and they recognized him, and he vanished from their sight. Let's think about these happenings as we continue together in our worship this morning.
Celebration,
I'm not quite done with Easter yet. Of course, we should never be done with Easter, but human nature being what it is, it happens. Now, I could have preached this sermon last Sunday, but I wasn't here. Better late than never, I guess. Anyhow, after Easter, it is easy to get the post-Easter doldrums. They're a lot like the post-Christmas doldrums, or the post-Thanksgiving doldrums, or the post-any special event or holiday doldrums. We get all fired up for these unique and exciting happenings, the preparation, the anticipation, the celebration, and then when it is over, well, the letdown is sometimes a bit difficult to handle. And here I'm talking about happy events. So imagine the feelings of the two men in our scriptural lesson, the ones heading from Jerusalem to Emmaus on that first Easter Sunday morning. They were followers of Jesus. The account only gives us one of their names, Cleopas, and beyond that we know that they were not members of Jesus' kitchen cabinet, because when their experience was finished, we are told that they returned to Jerusalem to tell the 11 remaining disciples what had happened. But I am sure they were there when Jesus entered Jerusalem the previous Sunday in preparation for the celebration of the Passover. And obviously they were aware of everything that had happened during the week, because they told this stranger who joined them all about it. So let's take a moment to recap and then go on from there. Two men walking the approximately 7 miles from the city to the town. Why were they going to Emmaus? We don't know. We don't even know exactly where Emmaus was. What we do know is that as they walked along, they discussed what had just happened. Suddenly they were joined by a third man whom they did not recognize, who asked them what was on their minds. They stopped for a moment, looking sad, and were shocked that this new companion apparently did not know about the events of Good Friday and the subsequent discovery of an empty tomb. In fact, Cleopas asked him, "Are you the only stranger in Jerusalem who does not know the things that have taken place there in these days?" The man responded with, "What things?" So they began to tell him about Jesus, whom they called a prophet, mighty in deed and word. They told him how the leaders of the country turned him over to the authorities to be condemned and crucified, how they had hoped that this Jesus would be the Messiah and redeem Israel, how it was now 3 days later, and when some women went to the tomb this morning, they had found it empty, how they reported having a vision of angels who claimed that Jesus was alive, how some of the disciples went to check out their story, and they could not find the body either. Then the stranger interrupted their narrative and called them foolish for not understanding that all this had to happen to accomplish the will of God, after which he gave them a Bible study lesson beginning with Moses. They were almost to their destination, and as they stopped for the night, they asked him to join them. He agreed, and it was as they broke bread for the evening meal that they recognized him. It was Jesus, and in that instant, he was gone. In their shock and amazement, they went back to Jerusalem as quickly as they could and told the disciples what they had seen. The account gives a clue to the emotions of the two men when it describes them as looking sad. Well, why wouldn't they be? In fact, I suggest that that observation is probably about as understated as it can get. Sad? Their dreams had been shattered and their world had been turned upside down. Even the story told by the women was hearsay and not all that believable. So until the very end of their experience with the man who joined them, they were probably about as negative and downcast as one could get. We all know people who are negative most of the time. Maybe some of those people are us. They're the ones who always see the glass as being half empty. They're the ones who can rain on everyone's parade, no matter the circumstances. But sometimes the tables can be turned. Perhaps you've heard of the woman who went to her hairdresser to get all fixed up for a trip to Rome, which she and her husband would soon be taking. She mentioned what they were planning, to which her hairdresser responded, "Rome? Why would anyone want to go there? It's crowded and dirty. The streets are filled with crazy drivers and there are pickpockets all over the place. You're nuts to go to Rome." The woman then added that they were flying on Delta and that they had gotten a great rate on their tickets. Sure enough, the hairdresser jumped right in with, "Delta? That's a terrible airline. The planes are old, their attendants are ugly, the seats are uncomfortable, they always arrive late. I wouldn't fly Delta if you paid me." The conversation continued when the hairdresser asked her customer where they were staying in Rome. The woman indicated that they had reservations at an exclusive little place by the Tiber River called Teste. Don't go any further. I know that place. Everybody thinks ahead of time that it's going to be something really special, but it's really a dump, an expensive dump. Getting desperate to defend herself, the woman exclaimed that they were going to the Vatican and that maybe they would get to see the Pope. That's rich. You and a million other people will be trying to see him. He'll look like an ant from where you'll be standing, and you won't be able to hear anything that he has to say. Good luck on this trip of yours. You're really going to need it. A bit over a month later, the same woman came to the same hairdresser for another hairdo. The hairdresser asked about her trip to Rome. With incredible excitement, she answered, "It was absolutely fabulous. The weather was perfect, and the city was awesome. Not only did we fly in one of Delta's brand new planes, but it was overbooked, and so they bumped us up to first class. The food and wine were wonderful, and I had a handsome 28-year-old steward waiting on me hand and foot. And the hotel was out of this world. They had just finished a $5 million renovation, so that now it's the finest hotel in the city. They too were overbooked, so after apologizing profusely, they gave us the owner's suite at no extra expense." Now, not quite ready to give up on her negativity, the hairdresser tried one last shot. She asked her customer if she got to see the Pope. The woman replied, "Actually, we were rather lucky because as we toured the Vatican, one of the Swiss guards tapped me on the shoulder and said that the Pope likes to meet some of the visitors. So if we were willing, would we be so kind as to step into a private room and wait for the Pope to come and speak with us?" Sure enough, about 5 minutes later, the Pope walked through the door and warmly shook my hand. Then, as I knelt down, he said a few words to me. The hairdresser, really surprised, asked what the Pope had said. The woman replied, "He asked me, 'Where did you get such a lousy haircut?'" It is easy to get negative. It is easy to get down. It is easy to get despondent, especially in today's world. We don't have to look very far to see lots of bad things happening, and more often than not, the people that we should be able to depend upon to set things right are the very ones who are causing the problems, or at least not helping to solve them. I'm not going to list all the horrors. You can do that yourselves. But I think we can all agree that they are there. So it is not strange that so many people are living in states, mild to severe, of human depression. How do we turn it around? It's not easy. It's never easy. But perhaps the first step would be to concentrate on the good that is all around us, and I would suggest that the good outweighs the bad. We were watching 60 Minutes on television not so long ago, and one of the hosts was in South Sudan reporting on humanitarian efforts to bring food to thousands and thousands of starving people, most of whom, 2.3 million, have been displaced by the civil war which is raging there. We don't hear too much about what is going on in South Sudan, Syria and Iraq and Afghanistan and Yemen, to say nothing of North Korea and Russia, and the problems caused by President Trump's tweeting have taken over the headlines and the newscasts. But the human tragedy occurring in this African country is overwhelming. As usual, most of the victims are women and children, with children under 14 representing 90% of the population. Billions of dollars have been poured in to relieve the situation, but most of it has been stolen by the combatants on one side or the other, and the people who most need help have been left to their misery. The program showed just one of the refugee camps, consisting of hundreds of thousands living in tents, with people lined up as planes flew overhead and dropped food supplies. 100-pound bags of grain which they, men and women, raced to get and carry back to their dwellings. This particular relief effort was run by WFP, World Food Program. And the workers interviewed said that they did not have nearly enough money or food to meet the needs. And indeed, it was dangerous to be there at all. Several of them had been killed by the various warring factions, but that they could not turn their backs on other human beings in such desperate straits. Now suppose these aid workers saw the glass as half empty, and in response threw up their hands, said it is no use, and went home. Or suppose the South Sudanese, experiencing such horror, simply gave up. But these people with every right in the world to be negative are not. And so they see good and do good in the midst of so much bad. This was just one program about just one place where conditions are this atrocious. And as I saw small children with skinny arms and legs and ribs that stuck out so far that you could count them easily, I thought about what our supermarkets look like as we walk down aisle after aisle of shelves so full that we have trouble choosing what we want, or how much food gets thrown out after meals because we can't finish what's on our plates. But I also thought about those who care and help, those who are positive that they can make a difference, and so they do. All of us can always look at our own situations and realize that there are so many, so much worse off than we are. That's a good intellectual exercise, but at a gut level, we still hurt. So here's where faith comes into the picture as we try to see the light at the end of the tunnel and believe that we are not alone, that not all is hopeless, that good things can happen. And usually when we see God at work in our lives, it is through the caring and concern, the support and sympathy of our family and friends and neighbors as they do what they can to help us in our difficulties. Jacob was down in the dumps when he fled from home and family because he feared what his brother would do in retaliation for his trickery. Joseph was desperate when he was sold into slavery. Moses was not sure which way to turn when he escaped from Egypt into the wilderness because of Pharaoh's wrath. Ruth and Naomi didn't know if they could survive in Bethlehem after they lost everything in Moab. David could not immediately see a bright future when he realized that King Saul wanted to kill him. The Hebrews, who were taken from their homeland after the Assyrians and the Babylonians conquered them, surely thought they had reached the end as a nation and as a people. And Jesus, we have some idea what he felt as he faced crucifixion with no guarantees that resurrection awaited. Finally, it took some time for the disciples to overcome their shock and despair when their friend and leader was killed and they thought that they might be next. All of these turned their downs into ups, and so can we. God shows us that we can. And especially through those who care about us, God will be with us, and we will not be alone. I have a Canadian friend who is 89 years old. Although she has certainly faced difficulties and hardships, losses and failures, on the whole, she has been blessed with long life and good health, with economic stability and close family. And I believe that one of the main characteristics which keeps her going is her positive attitude. She recently wrote me and said that in response to a question from her glaucoma specialist about her philosophy, and after some serious thought, she declared, "I've decided my philosophy at age 89 is that my glass is 89% full." Now, I'm not sure that all of us can match that, but whoa, look at that. And that's not a mimosa. We did the color just so that it would be a little more impressive. I have been sipping from this glass all morning, and it's still half full. It's going to be a good day. as we go from this place, let us make sure that we take the Spirit of God that is in us with us and display that to the world. Let us take our downs and make them ups so that we can bring ups to all the people with whom we come in contact. And in our efforts, may the Lord bless us and keep us. The Lord make his face to shine upon us and be gracious unto us. The Lord lift the light of his countenance upon us and give us peace, both now and forevermore. Amen.